All right, so getting back now to my analysis of Rudolf Steiner's Gospel according to Luke. It's been about a year. There were 3 chapters left in his book, and it's been about a year. And I want to finish this and then go through the John Gospel and then finally get to Rudolf Steiner's own 5th Gospel, which is what all this is leading up to. So it's been a year. It usually takes me about a year once I don't finish a project to come back around to it. Okay, so we're in the middle of Luke 5 here. So what Steiner says is that he focuses on this idea of the etheric body. The etheric body is what organizes and shapes and forms the physical body, and it also has to do with health and illness. If things go wrong with the etheric body, they're going to manifest in the physical body. And he says in ancient India, for instance, the etheric body was still not fully identified. It might look something like this. So this would be like the outer etheric body surrounding these people, so that there was a certain pliability in India to the physical body. For example, if you think of all the feats that the yogis can do when they're doing Kundalini yoga, they can bend their limbs and impossible contortions, do all kinds of impossible things because the body was still pliable, still soft. And it was such that if you hurled a name of abuse at someone, it would penetrate the etheric body and go right into the physical body and manifest as an illness. Or words of love, for instance, would go through the etheric body and create feelings of warmth. Totally different from the way over time the etheric body has slowly withdrawn. And I suppose this is what in the New Age would be called an aura, a person's aura. Until it might look something like this now, where the etheric body, you have the chakras here in the center, but the etheric body today now is not extending past the physical body. It has become essentially identical with it, and in fact the physical body has taken over, such that if someone hurled words of abuse at you, it wouldn't manifest necessarily as a physical illness, because the etheric body is now embedded firmly within the physical body. And so he says in the future what will happen in the Christ event was crucial to unlocking etheric energies and beginning to loosen up the etheric body so that it won't necessarily return to the way it was in India, because it will have a developed sense of I. Christ brings the I consciousness, the egoic consciousness. And it might look something like this. It might develop, and when it develops like that, it's much more receptacle to soul spiritual energies than our body is today, because it's so solid, and the etheric body is basically identical with the physical body, and so it's not very well receptive to spiritual ideas. And the Gospel of Luke was a physician. He was a healer, and so there are miracles. There are 1 or 2 exorcisms, but whereas the Gospel of Mark, as we have seen, emphasizes exorcisms, and the thing about demons is that they possess the astral body, not the etheric body. They get into the astral body, which is the seat of passions and desires and intentions and things like that, not the etheric body. So the etheric body in the Luke Gospel is what is focused on, what needs to be healed. For instance, he talks about here in Luke 5, the paralytic. He's a paralytic, and they're trying to heal him, but Jesus can't get to him. So they have to put him on a platform on top of the roof of this house and lower him down through the roof. And then Jesus heals him not by saying, "Arise, walk," but he says, "Man, your sins are forgiven you." And this heals him. And there's some individuals who are skeptical of this, and he tells the guy, "I say to you, rise, take up your bed and go home." And he does so. So the point that Steiner wants to make here is that now in the Luke Gospel, it's morality. It's your sins first that have to be healed, and that will then change and resonate within the etheric body to transform it. And it isn't just a matter, as it was, let's say in the Mark Gospel, of casting out demons from astral body, but now morality comes in. And then he talks about another event. It's in I think it's in 8 here, where he goes into the house of someone named Jairus. See if I found it. Yeah, Jairus in the latter part of 8. And his 12-year-old daughter, is dying. And in fact, she apparently does die. But he's got this crowd around him. And so he's going in. And there's a woman who has been bleeding for 12 years. A complete stranger, bleeding for 12 years. And all she does is she reaches out and she grabs his garment, just touches his garment, and then she's healed. So then Jesus is then able to go into Jairus' house, and all the relatives are gathered around. They're saying, well, she's dead. I mean, what are you going to do? And he says, your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher anymore. But Jesus, on hearing this, answered, do not fear, only believe, and she shall be well. And then he goes in there, and he says, do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping. And they laughed at him, knowing she was dead. But by taking her by the hand, he called, saying, child, arise. And her spirit returned, and she got up at once. So he heals her. And then Steiner says there's actually, the reason for this is because there was a karmic connection between this 12-year-old girl and this woman who had an illness, a flow of blood for 12 years. I don't know if that implies menstrual blood or what it is exactly, but for 12 years. And so Steiner says they're karmically connected. So in order to raise this girl from the dead, he first had to work out the karma with the woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. So she had to be healed first. Then once that was done, it cleared the way for him to go in and heal the girl. So Luke was a physician. He was a Greek and a physician, and he emphasizes Christ's healing abilities, not so much the exorcism abilities as Mark does. Although there are some exorcisms in here, but not that many, not by comparison. And then so Steiner says, in the future what will happen is that with regard to the chakras now, especially the Vishuddha chakra, which has 16 petals, and it's at the level of the larynx. It's the voice chakra that's connected with what Steiner elsewhere has called the sound ether. So he has a life ether and a sound ether, and the sound ether is connected to, it's basically the logos, the sound. You can't hear it with your audible senses. It's a sound, it's a sort of highly vibrational tuning sound that moves through matter and creates in the individual who receives it maximum coherence. And so he says, in the future, when the etheric body, because of the Christ event, loosens up again, the Vishuddha chakra will be able to be active, and we will be able to hear the logos, the sound, the music of the spheres, basically. It's not audible to us. And I have read accounts of people under regressive hypnosis who have gone to the other side, and they say there is incredibly beautiful music there that's indescribable. It's at a low hum, but you can hear it. And it's sort of in and through and implicit, the subtle matter, the sukshma matter, over on the other side. Let's take a look for a second at the chakras. Let's review them. There are 7 of them. And by the way, I believe them to be real. They're not metaphors. I have seen a man's chakras under the influence of psilocybin on a psilocybin trip, which must have tuned my brain to a higher frequency so that I could look at the guy lying on the ground. He was having a hard time. And I could see his meridians and I could see his chakras. So they're real. They're actual. This is the lowest of the chakras, what's called the Muladhara chakra, the root base, and it's located between the genitals and the anus, the perineum, in other words. And here we have the element, the square is the element earth, and it's got 4 petals, and the petals always have sounds and syllables and vowels and so forth inscribed into them. They represent the sound aspect that we were just talking about, the sound ether. And the elephant supports the entire cosmos here. And this is Airavata, which is the elephant that Indra rides on, who was cursed. All elephants were cursed by a yogi. They used to be clouds, and they used to fly around, and they alighted on the branches of a tree and disturbed a yogi who cursed them. So now they're the heaviest thing in creation, and they're doomed to walk the earth. So he supports the world. And above him is a triangle with a lingam and a yoni. The downward pointing triangle is a yoni, a vagina, and the thing in the center there is a lingam, a penis. And wrapped around that lingam is the serpent, the Kundalini serpent, which is coiled 3.5 times around it. So it's sleeping. And the goal of Kundalini Yoga is to awaken it, to wake it up. And Brahma and his consort here are the gods. And so this is the Sushumna, which is the subtle version of the spinal column. And the goal is to awaken that serpent and send it up the spinal column to awaken. And this was the best I could find. Sir Arthur Avalon's book, The Serpent Power. I was looking for a color version of this, but I couldn't find one. This is the second chakra, and it's at the level of the genitals, called Svadhisthana, which means her favorite resort. I think for obvious reasons. And it's, let's see, what is it? 3, 4, 5, 6 petals. And so we have this crescent moon, and the moon is associated with the sexual energies. And then we have this creature, this all-devouring creature. Once this energy is activated, everything is sex. This is Freudian psychology, let's say. Sex, 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 sex. It's the only thing you can think about. And Vishnu is the god here. So we move up from Brahma to Vishnu as we go up to Sushumna. And then we go to the Manipura chakra. And this is at the level of the abdomen. This is the will to power. This is just the Nietzschean chakra, let's say, the will to power. And here we have the ram that's associated with Agni, the fire god. And in Western astrology too, Aries is a fire sign. So we have the element of fire here. Previously in the Svadhisthana we had water. Now we have the element of fire, and Shiva in his wrathful mode with his wrathful consort here. This is the desire to conquer. Even sex is not seen in erotic terms, but as something, as a conquest. Oh, there's another notch on my belt. It's not enjoyed in and of itself. And then so we move up then to the heart chakra. And this is the most important one. There's a mini chakra here, kind of an 8th chakra, which is rooted in what's called the wish-fulfilling tree. And so as you're moving up into the higher levels of consciousness, the wish-fulfilling tree becomes essential. And then so we have the heart chakra, anahata, which means the sound that is not made by any two things striking together. So now we're beginning to hear the logos. We're beginning to hear the sound of the universe as we move up here, up the Sushumna. And these are all, of course, Sanskrit syllables, various Sanskrit syllables. And then, so we get to the Vishuddha chakra here, which is at the level of the throat. And this is the 16-petaled chakra. And this then is what Steiner is talking about. This chakra will be activated as the etheric body, which is enmeshed right now in our materialistic civilization, completely enmeshed with the physical body, will gradually be loosened by the Christ event. And then finally we have the third eye, the Agya chakra, which has only 2 petals. This is the eye that sees God, that only wants to see God and talk about God. And I should mention then that starting with the Vishuddha chakra at the throat, the lower chakras, the lower 3 chakras are transformed via the heart chakra into positive power. So in other words, the Svadhisthana chakra is transformed to the Agya chakra. Love for sex becomes love for God. And so they're transformed. The Manipura chakra becomes transformed into the Vishuddha chakra, which is self-mastery, purification, asceticism, mastery over oneself, not aggression against others. And then finally, I don't have it pictured here, but the crown of the head is the 1,000-petaled chakra, the Sahasrara, which once the serpent goes up into that zone, then you enter into samadhi, which is a state of ecstatic bliss. So I thought it would be worth reviewing the chakras here because Steiner incorporates them into his model, and the Christ event, especially as he goes through the Luke Gospel with all of its healing all the various healings that Christ performs have to do with activations of subtle energies, which are real. All right, so we'll leave it there with that discussion for the Gospel of Luke. And there's 2 more chapters in Steiner's book that we'll look at next.